Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to have you with me here today for my session, Keeping Joy at the Center of Teaching and Learning, as part of the Ed Collab gathering in April 2024. I'm excited to share this topic with you. It's something that has become really important to me and something that I wanted to share. So, a little bit about what our session will entail today. We will talk a little about what is joy and how do we define joy, because it's always important to start with what is it that we're talking about. And then the second part of our session today, we'll talk about finding your joy as an educator, as a human being, and how do we really center our own joy in order to be the best educators that we can be. And then finally, we'll talk about how do we embrace joy and celebrate joy in our classroom. So, a little bit about me. I keep moving my face here. A little bit about me. I am currently the Instructional Technology and Innovation Coordinator in a suburban Chicago district, but I'm very excited that next year I will be taking on the role of an associate principal in a K-5 building in a neighboring district for next school year. So, big changes happening for me. Prior to these roles, I started my career as a special education teacher. I was an instructional coach and also a technology specialist. So I've been in education for a few years and have had a wealth of experiences, all of which where I wanted to make sure that joy was part of my story. Um, I experienced burnout at the end of the pandemic and really had to reevaluate what it meant for me to be an educator and what my work life balance worked with. So that is something that's really pivotal, let's try that again, pivotal to who I am as an educator. I'm also a true lifelong learner. I'm always trying to learn more. And that is evidenced. I have 3 master's degrees. But probably most important about me is I'm a wife, a mom to a tween boy, and a spunky rescue pup. And so a little bit a little bit about me, and in my pictures there you can see my tween boy and my husband and I on a recent vacation and our spunky rescue pup. And I think it's really important to really humanize educators. And so, and I'll share more. I was at a presentation recently where the speaker started like this, and I was really moved by that, about really connecting to each other and really knowing who we are. I also identify very much as a creative soul. It is very much who I am. I'm recording this from my home art studio, and art is a big part of who I am, but also so is joy, and something that has become really important to my day to day in every aspect of my life. So let's go ahead and get started by really looking at what is joy and how do we define joy. So, what I really enjoy doing, and when I'm doing a presentation like this live, is really take the time for people to do what I like to call ink your thinking. So, what I'd like you to do right now is pause this video, find yourself your favorite pen and a piece of paper or a notebook, whatever that may be, because I'm going to ask you to stop and take some notes throughout this presentation. So pause the video right now and get that pen and paper handy because you're going to use that. All right, hopefully you have done that. I am a diehard Flair girl, and I use a lot of dotted notebooks. That's kind of my thing and how I function. So, what I want you to do before I share any of my definitions of how I define joy, I'd like you to think about that. Just take a minute, and how do you define joy in this moment? Take a minute to go ahead and write down your thoughts. Go ahead, and I'm going to have you pause this video one more time. Well, maybe not one more, it's going to be a lot more. Pause this video and go ahead and ink your thinking. How do you define joy? All right, hopefully you've taken some time to jot down some notes. Now, what I'd like to do is share some definitions out there. So let's start with Merriam-Webster, good old dictionary. Didn't get it from the paper kind, got it from the Google kind. But let's see. Merriam-Webster describes joy as the emotion evoked by well-being, success, or good fortune, or by the prospect of possessing what one desires or delight. So I think one of the things we think about is happiness and joy. They are very different things. Joy is more of that long term and the well-being idea. All right, let's take a look at another example. One of my most favorite human beings in the planet, who inspires me with everything she does, is the author Brene Brown. And in her book, Atlas of the Heart, where she chronicles all of many emotions, she defines joy as an intense feeling of deep spiritual connection, pleasure, and appreciation. So I thought this was an interesting take on it too, where it is that deep connection and appreciation. All right, let's take a look at one more. Recently, I have spent a lot of time working through the recent book from Goldie Muhammad, Unearthing Joy. I highly recommend it. I'm learning so much as I'm working my way through it. I have so much to learn. But her definition of joy is one that really spoke to me too. Joy is the embodiment of sustained happiness and having knowledge of the world, centering wellness and the gifts that may or may not be captured in traditional school assessments. So, thinking about this, about the idea of joy, sustained happiness, wellness, and gifts that may not be captured in traditional school assessments. Hold that, because that's going to be important as we talk more about what this looks like in the classroom. Another one, this is one that I really love too, and I love this picture of this little boy. Joy is the kind of happiness that doesn't depend on what happens. And that really left me thinking about how I define joy and what that looks like for me. Because really, joy is not something that can be taken from me because I have a rough day with a student. Or joy is not something that I can lose because traffic was awful this morning. Happiness, absolutely. Contentment, absolutely. But joy is really separate from that. It is something that is deep within you and is important as you continue thinking about what this looks like for you as an educator. All right, so I had you take a minute to write down your definition of joy at the beginning, and I've shared a few more definitions. What I'd like you to do is to take a couple minutes and consider those definitions. Did it change the way that you think of joy? Take a few minutes to edit. Do you agree with these definitions? Are there things that challenge you? So I'd love for you to take a minute to pause this video and think about these things. I'll go through them one more time. So again, take a minute. Has your definition changed? Would you edit it? And what challenges you? Take a minute to ink your thinking once again. All right, I hope you have that pen and paper handy because we're going to do something more with it. I would love for you, now that we've really defined joy and what joy looks like for you, I want you to take a minute. Don't even get that paper and pen ready just yet. When was the last time you felt intense joy? And I'll share my example. My husband and son and I just recently took a spring break trip to the Dominican Republic. It was my son's first time out of the country. We've had a crazy busy fall, winter, getting ready for a crazy busy spring. And the moment that my son saw the ocean and was so excited to run into the ocean was life-changing for me and was truly one of those moments. So if I close my eyes at this moment, I can still see it. I can see my son's crazy swimsuit that he was wearing. I can smell the salt water. I can feel the sun on my face. So, what I'd love for you to do is to really think for a minute. When was the last time you felt that intense joy? Close your eyes and really picture it. What do you hear? What do you see? What do you smell? Maybe even what do you taste? Just take a minute to really go back to that moment in time. Brene Brown tells a story about how these are picture memories and how we try to really capture them. Once you got that, I would love for you just to jot down a couple of sentences about that. Thinking about that picture memory of the last time you felt that intense joy. Ooh, I jumped way too far. All right, hold on, hold that thought. Hopefully that makes you smile as I just like I literally look at my face. I can't stop smiling thinking about that moment with my son and my husband and how really that just embodied. It was a moment of true joy that I will take with me as I go into this crazy spring season that we're entering here. All right, now let's take a minute to talk about now that we've had that moment of intense joy. And unfortunately for me, I cannot spend all of my days at the ocean as much as I would love to. I live in the Midwest, and there's absolutely no opportunities for the ocean on a daily basis. So, how do I find my joy? And my joy, how do I do that as an educator myself? So I want to share a resource here. This picture was taken from this amazing book that I purchased many years ago and have just now started to go through called The Burnout Cure, Learning to Love Teaching Again by Chase Mielke. And so I really this spoke to me on so many levels. We're in the middle of state testing here where I live. I happen to be our testing coordinator, and there's just so much that I don't love right now. And so I love this example here. I'll give you a minute to kind of take a look at it, and think about have you ever experienced this? And really gone through this cycle of how we are. And I will definitely say this take holiday breaks, reset and recharge. I'm here, but it can't be sustained, obviously, all the time without having some other opportunities. So, that being said, what does that really mean? Another piece of reading that I did intensely as I was recovering myself from burnout, the Degoski sisters wrote this amazing book called Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle. I've done a couple of other presentations about that. They also have a great podcast with Brene Brown that she talks about with them about this. So I don't want to read the whole paragraph here for you, but the idea is that really, as educators, we often find ourselves in what they call the human giver syndrome, where we are always giving of ourselves and always giving. And the thought of us taking time to take care of ourselves or find that piece of joy feels icky. Like, why would I do that? It might, like that's going to make things even worse. And it's going to be this whole cycle. But honestly, it's actually part of the problem. It's part of the problem because we keep giving and giving and giving, and you can't pour from an empty cup, as everyone likes to say. And really looking at this, we really need to take that time to take care of ourselves. And one way to do that is to make sure that we're connecting and finding our joy. So, as I was doing some of my research as well, in the Burnout Cure, he talks about these two ideas, and at first I was like, but as I got further into reading about it, it was very interesting. In ancient Greeks, had two ways that they looked at happiness. And I'm going to mispronounce these, and I was going to practice beforehand, but I didn't. So, one of those is hedonia, which is the subjective state of feeling great, pleasure and simple happiness. So that is the idea of, my day is going great. The sun is shining. I hit all the green lights. Life is great. But the minute that you hit traffic or the minute you spill your coffee, it's gone. It's that simple happiness that just can come and go as we look at it. The idea of joy is really in eudaimonia. Oh, I really messed that up. Eudaimonia. Monia. Bear with me, please. And then, it's about the content, not necessarily the vocabulary. This is the idea of the thriving of the soul and doing what you're meant to do as a human, that purpose filled life. And so many of us as educators, we went into this because we felt a calling or felt a purpose. So often we're told, remember your why, remember your why. Yes, that is important. But also knowing that we're going to work and we're going to do things every day that are important, and I have a purpose in what I'm doing. That's where we can find that deep joy. Now, that's not to say that there isn't joy in the small moments. There is so much joy in coffee in the morning. I can find my joy in that. But I also want to find that deeper sense of joy. And where I find that deeper sense of joy is when I am really feeling fulfilled and finding a purpose in what I am doing. So, a couple of things that I'm going to give you some tips of actually things that you can do. And many of these are from the Burnout Cure, which is, yes, one piece of it, but I think are just really powerful ways for us to focus on our joy and focus on the good that we're trying to do in our classrooms. There's so much out there that is against us. There's so much, the media and all of the things around us. There are so many things going against us. Let's look at things that can really help us do our best. And so one of the ideas is to take a no complaint challenge. I'm going to give this a shot. And I'd love to hear if this is something that you've given a shot, or after this presentation, please connect with me if these are things that you've tried, because I would love to hear how it goes. So the idea is this: for 24 hours, no complaining, no venting, no criticism. Anytime you find yourself doing that, you want to try to stop and reflect on, why am I doing this? Negative energy breeds negative energy. And as we're trying to keep that focus on our joy, we have to really take this piece out. You can enlist others for accountability and ask other people to do this with you. In fact, one of my ideas was I share my office with three of my colleagues, and maybe we'll try this for a day. The three of us are going to do this. We're going to have a 24 hours of a no complaint challenge and see if we can manage it. I definitely will have to report back on how that goes. You can also do this without telling anyone and see if other people notice a difference in you and notice the difference in how you are reacting with people. At the end, take the time to reflect. How'd you do? I can guarantee I'm not sure that 24 hours I can do purely. But notice, when did you get triggered? What are the things that really steal your joy or really make you focus on that negative energy? And really be aware of that as you are going through. All right, so here's the next one. I love this idea. Rituals are key. In the book, and I think about this myself, bedtime rituals. When we have young children, we know how important ritual is to young children, especially at bedtime. Trying to have that bedtime battle, but if you have your routine where there's always the same things that you're doing every single night, your child knows that this is what we're going to do. I spent a big part of my career as a middle school special education teacher. And if my students knew what my routines were, we did well. And we did well if we knew exactly what is our ritual, what are the things that we do at the end of each class period. So this really spoke to me. Thinking about your day and finding a way to have a peak end or a high, we're going to end on that high. What are some things you can do as a ritual that you do every single day? So one of the ideas is to take the win of the day. Take that pen and paper, and you're going to write down a win for every single day. One line, one sentence, more than that. And just, what was the one win? And some days it's going to be really small, and other days it's going to be big. For me today, my win of the day absolutely is we had very few challenges with our testing platform today. That's a big win for me today. And so just really taking the time to actually write that down and not leaving your classroom until, or your office space until you do that. Another idea is to take uplifting music and play the same uplifting song at the end of every single day. So just as you're cleaning up your room, as you're packing up for the day, have the same song playing so that that just triggers your brain. That's my joy. That's my happiness. One of the things I would play a song as I drove to school. I had a very challenging classroom my last year in the classroom, and I had a song that I played every single morning. It was like, it's going to be a great day. I don't remember the name of it, but I played that song every day as I pulled into the parking lot. Makes a difference. So again, flipping that to the end of the day. All right, often at the end of the day, we have a vent session with our colleagues. What if we have a victory session instead? Let's focus on what went well. Okay. Another idea is at the end of your day, set a specific goal for the next day. What is my goal for the next day going to be? What do I want to be my focus? And that can really set your intention for the next day. What about sending a positive email? So often it's in our mind to do that. We want to send a positive email. I want to send that, but it just gets lost in all of the emails we have to send or all of the other pieces. How about every single day you send a positive email either to a parent of a student, to a colleague, to a friend, just sending an email every single day before you leave work, you send that one email. Or perhaps you leave an affirmation on the board for your students for the next day. Leave something positive on the board so that it's the first thing you see in the morning and the first thing that your students see as they walk in the day. So, again, the idea is to create some sort of ritual that you do every single day. Pick one of these and give it a try for a week. See how it feels. Or combine some of these. What makes sense for you to really just end your day on a high note? I actually started this during the pandemic. I have it around here somewhere where I had a joy jar. And what you can do is, oh, here's an empty one. This is not my current one, but just take a mason jar. You can make it cute or not cute. And each day, this could even go with your peak end ritual. Take a moment at the end of the day or whenever it fits with your schedule and write a piece of joy, a moment of joy, or a positive memory in a slip of paper each day and place it in the jar. And then when you need a pick me up, you empty that jar out and you can see all of those things. And perhaps you made a picture memory with one of those, and you can then go back and relive that joy. Again, so often the negative memories and negative things that have happened, they weigh and they feel bigger in our minds. What we want to do is really just overpower them with these positive moments of joy and keeping those at the forefront of our minds. Meditation is a powerful tool. It's one that I am still very much working to master. I think in my head, I think meditation has to be so formal, and it doesn't. It can be as simple as just some breathing. It could also be just noticing your surroundings. When I find myself at a really stressful point, just taking the few minutes to notice what I see, what I hear, what I feel in that present moment to really ground myself can really be powerful and really connect me back to what's happening there. There are also some amazing apps out there that are free for educators. I know both Headspace and Calm. If you have a school account, you can get a free subscription for them. Many of my colleagues have used them with their students and with themselves. It's just really a powerful way to do that. I think we've come a long way from understanding meditation doesn't have to be formal and sitting and taking those deep breaths, but really just really taking the time to think and notice what's happening around you. This is one of my personal favorites and one I was really good at for a long time and just really fell off the wagon. How amazing is it for people to find a handwritten thank you note? I really think it's a craft and an art that is lost in our digital age. And yes, There's a time and a place for an email, but how powerful is a thank you note? What I have is I have some little cards that I will share with my colleagues that just say on the front, "You're awesome, and I thought you should know." And I just jot a little note on the back of them. Several of my colleagues have them pinned up on their board because they had such an impact on them. Take the time to really write a note to someone. It is a really powerful tool for yourself as well as the person who receives it. This can really be a routine where on Fridays you send them, or even on Mondays. It might even be a great Monday task to start your week off right. Write a thank you note to people that are important to you, in your classroom, in your environment, outside of your classroom. You know, the thankless job that many of our crossing guards do, or that our cafeteria workers, all of the things that may feel like they go unnoticed. How powerful for you to give them a handwritten note so that you're sharing your joy with them. This is also one of my personal favorites, and I just recently came across mine. I like the idea of calling it a joy museum. And so this idea is collecting tangible items that remind you of moments of joy. So for me, I have some newspaper clippings of former students. I have some thank you notes from former students. I have this sweetest birthday card that was created by some of my students with, their invented spelling on it. And it just, every time I look at it, I go back to that moment in time and can picture that class. And it was a few years ago, maybe more than a few, and I can still picture it. I have actual photographs that I've taken in there. I also have art that students have drawn or created for me. And so it's just really having that tangible box. Mine happens to be a Rubbermaid shoebox, or a plastic shoebox that I keep at work. I keep it in my office at work. And so when I'm having that really tough time, sometimes just going into that and treasuring those moments and really taking myself back to that moment. Again, it's about focusing on the joy that we experience and making that forefront in our minds, as opposed to many of the negative emotions we're often feeling. So, we've talked a little bit about finding your joy as an educator, and I think that is so important, and it's really not something we should skip over. We are important, and we are critical to the success of our students, and taking care of ourselves is so important. Take the time to really do the work and find your joy. We are so busy, but taking those few moments at the end of your day or at different moments in your day can really be a powerful way to really fill yourself up so that you can be the best educator for your students. Now I'd like to shift a little bit about how do we really bring joy in our classrooms. I've recently, been pondering or really struggling with some of the instructional practices that are being promoted out in the world of education are very feel very disconnected from joy. I don't know how else to say that, where they're very much based on skills, very much based on a deficit model, and have taken some of the creativity out of teaching and really focused on really some concrete things. And yes, there are important things that we want kids to be doing in the classrooms, but joy is a critical part of what brings kids to school every single day. Many of our students are struggling outside of the school day, and their safe space is our classrooms, and the place where they feel the most valued is in the classrooms. And we really need to not lose sight of what our classrooms are meant to be for our students. Again, another quote from Goldie Muhammad in her book is, "Joy is the ultimate goal of teaching and learning, not test prep or graduation." I'd like you to take out that pen and paper again, and I'd like you to really think about this quote. Does it resonate with you? Do you disagree with this statement? How does this sit with you? Take a minute to pause the video and really ponder this quote. I'll read it one more time. Joy is the ultimate goal of teaching and learning, not test prep or graduation. Hopefully, you've taken some time to really think about that. That really was an aha moment for me, and really solidified my beliefs as an educator, and my core values are really center around creating that joy. So, just as we talked about that moment of intense joy, your recent intense joy, I want you to think about a teaching moment where you felt joy. So I will give an example of one. When I was a middle school teacher, one of our big days was an international fair that we did, where we spent all of this time preparing for it and doing all this work. And sometimes I felt like it was just me doing these projects with the students and didn't feel connected to anything. But one day, one year, I had a student who got up and shared about her family's culture and was just so proud about it. And we had worked with her spelling and reading and writing skills, and she was so proud to be able to showcase that moment. I can see the costume she was wearing that day. I can hear the voices of my other students at the time listening to her. I can see what my classroom looked like at that moment. It is truly a picture memory for me that is so ingrained in who I am as an educator. So I'd like you to take a minute and think about a teaching moment. Hopefully you've had one where you felt that joy, that really that awe, that deep sense of connection, that gratitude. Close your eyes and really remember that moment. Take a minute to really think about what was that moment? What does it feel like? What do you see? What do you hear? Maybe even what do you taste? Take a minute to really savor that moment and that memory. And once you've done that, jot down a couple of notes about that. All right, now I want you to go back even further. And I would love for you to think about a time when you were the student. For me, that was a few years ago. For some of you, that might not have been that long ago. But think about a time when you, as a student, felt joy in a classroom environment. What was a moment that you felt intense joy? And I can, in a minute, tell you it was my sixth grade teacher, Mrs. Gruber. I can picture being in her classroom. And as a class, we decided to throw a birthday party for her. Wasn't connected to standards, wasn't part of anything, but we felt this strong connection to our teacher that year, and we wanted to throw a birthday party for her. And at the time, our sixth grade wasn't in the middle school; it was like a self-contained, still like an elementary school classroom. And I, to this day, still admire and honor her, and I happen to still be connected to her via social media. But she had such an impact on my life. But in this exact moment, I made a gift for her. I had hand painted something for her, and I spelled her name wrong. This woman made the biggest deal about how beautiful this piece of art I made for her was, and completely brushed over that I spelled her name wrong. And I can still picture myself handing her that to her and just realizing it was spelled wrong and having that moment of panic. But then the fact how much she gushed over it, how powerful that was for me as a student, and how I felt that so seen and held and valued to her. So I'd love for you to take a minute and really do you have a moment like that? I really hope you do. I hope you have a moment that you remember as a student where you felt that intense joy. Again, take a minute to close your eyes and really remember that moment. Think about, what does it feel like? What do you see? What do you hear? What do you taste? Take a minute to really close your eyes and really feel that moment. And once you've done that, jot down a few notes about that. Pause the video and take the time to do that. Pretty please. I think that's really important. All right. Now, thinking about your comment, your things that you wrote down in the stories that I shared, let's, some of the common themes we might see in these ideas where we felt that intense joy as a teacher and also as a student. For me, and I hope for you, it's about the relationships and those connections that I had with my teacher and I have had with my students. There's an important sense of belonging. There might even be a piece of love there a little bit. I can tell you absolutely that I feel that sense of love from that sixth grade teacher to this day in that moment. And even as I still talk with her, and maybe there are some core memories. I think about that moment. For me, it is literally etched in my memory. So, as we think about these themes for ourselves and for our students, what does that mean as we go forward? And we look at some of our scripted curriculums and some mandates that we have to follow and things we're not allowed to talk about, things we have to talk about, guidelines and rules and pacing guides and all of these things. How do we make sure that we still have joy in our classrooms? Because we know that's really important for us and for our students. So I was recently very privileged to hear a presentation from the Illinois Teacher of the Year for 2023. Her name is Miss Brianna Morales. She is amazing. I will make sure to have a link to her website. And she happens to be a teacher who works with students who are incarcerated or are in alternative school placements in East St. Louis. And for those of you who aren't from the Midwest, East St. Louis it can be a tough area to grow up into. But she shared this idea, and it was new to me, but I've since read about it a few things, and many of you probably already know this phrase. But the idea that we are all connected. And the phrase, I am because you are, and you are because we are. I think in our current climate, in our current educational system, we often forget that we are truly all interconnected. And one of the things that the gifts that we can truly give our students is emphasizing that interconnectedness and how we are all connected to each other. And as we work together as a classroom community and as students and teachers, how we really can connect. And our joy is connected to our students' joy, and our students' joy is connected to that of their colleagues, their peers, and the world around them. Another quote that just really spoke to me. I have never encountered any children in any group who are not geniuses. There is no mystery in how to teach them. The first thing you do is treat them as human beings, and the second thing you do is to love them. And I think, again, as we think about all these mandates and requirements we've lost the humanness. And how do we really honor the humanness of our students and connect to that in our classrooms? So I'd like for you to really think about these two questions here. And the link I have on the slide is actually to Brianna Taylor's, or I'm sorry, Brianna Morales's um, link tree that has all of her information, really some powerful stories. And she's created a nonprofit to support her other students, just really powerful. But so these are two things that she challenged those of us who were at her presentation to really consider. How do we intentionally create spaces where our students feel seen and known? And how are we centering students' humanity? Really important points to really think about as we are really building those opportunities for joy in our classrooms. So here is just some things that are small but are so big at the same time. How can we really move away from a deficit model and celebrate the genius of all of our students? Many of our students may struggle with our core academics, but all of our students are geniuses in their own right. And how can we really shift and focus to really celebrating our students and finding those moments to create those core memories, create the sense of belonging, and really build that joy into our instruction and into our classrooms? It's really important to understand where our students come from. And I think we've come a long way here, but we have a long way to go. And one of the things that she really spoke to was focusing on relationships, not only with our students, but also with their family and communities, and really getting to know our students' families. This can be tricky and can be really challenging, but I think it can be powerful. Also looking at how can we connect with the community at large. I happen to work currently in a school district that has a large population of immigrants from Mongolia, something I knew nothing about before working with several of these students and families. And I have taken the time to really get to learn about their culture, about what life is like here for them as immigrants, and really trying to get to know the community and understand how their community is different than my own and how I can support them in my current role, but also just as a human being, how I can really get to know them. And it's really important for our students to not only see that we care about them, but we care about their families and their communities. Another session that I recently attended really struck the idea to me about how there's so much at us all the time and how we can just focus on one thing. And this particular presenter, her name is Joy Kerr, she's an educator here in Illinois, talked about how listening was the one thing she was going to really focus on. We have so many demands on our time, and we are often multitasking in our classrooms, and we've got lots going on. But how often do we really take the time to really listen to our students? And really listening means not to be listening to respond and not trying to plan what you're going to say next. And boy, this is really hard for me, is really taking the time to fully listen. This can really be the greatest act of love for our students and celebrating that joy. And it's also something that is fully under our control. So much in our day is out of our control, but taking the time to close our computer screen and listen to our students fully can really be the gift we can give them so they feel seen and heard. I've honestly started to do this. I don't have my own students. I work in a coordinator role, but I have taken upon to really having that time to really connect with students in the mornings as they're coming in and really making that direct eye contact and getting onto the same level with them and not having my phone, not having my technology, anything around me. It's just me and them. And that really is a really powerful thing to do. It's hard because we are all trying to do 100 things at once, and really taking the time to fully listen to our students can really be a powerful way for them to feel that sense of belonging, that connectedness, to hopefully give them that moment of joy in our classroom. So this is kind of where I'm going to wrap up here. We've talked about what is joy. We've talked about finding our own personal joy, and also how do we embrace joy in our classroom and really see our students and create those experiences for them. Just a couple of references that I have talked about. Brene Brown's book, Atlas of the Heart, really a powerful read. Unearthing Joy by Goldie Muhammad is really powerful. And then the third book is a lesser known book, but one that really spoke to me, called The Burnout Cure. All three of these books I highly recommend adding to your bookshelf. Thank you for your time today. I'd love to connect with you. If something here resonates with you, or you want to give it a try, or you want some feedback, I would be happy to interact. Easiest way is via email. My email is patience@patiencebertana.com. You can also find me at patiencebertana.com or on Instagram at Feed Your Creative Soul. Thank you so much. And I really hope that you will find some joy and taking the time to really think about how joy can really be at the center of our classrooms. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your conference.